What's up, guys? Welcome to another MarbleCast. Today we have a special guest, Coach Gary Valentine from Connecticut Weightlifting. Coach Gary has been in the sport for over 30 years, has a ton of knowledge, is an exercise science adjunct professor. Just a ton of knowledge with this guy. We're super excited to have him on here, so let's check it out. All right, welcome to another MarbleCast. I'm Joe Marble. Today I'm joined by Coach Gary Valentine of Connecticut Weightlifting. Gary, what's going on?
Busy, waiting in COVID limbo, but we're still getting it done here. We had a club meet yesterday, actually, so we're keeping it going.
Like just in-house meet, or did you open it up?
Yes, 5 lifters, 5 women in the morning, 5 guys in the afternoon. Just ran it like like we always used to do. Just a club meet here. Everybody improving, making their PRs, learning how to lift. Great day.
Yeah, you have a really solid club out there in Connecticut. You're in Stamford?
Born and raised in Stamford. I live in Wilton now since actually moved up here in 1992 when I was married.
Yeah, you run how many meets before COVID? How many meets a year would you run?
Well, I'm 63 years old. Started in the sport in the fall, end of summer of 1979, before most of you guys were born. Competed, but ran my first meet in 2005. Blue Streak Sports Performance in Stamford. Did one meet, then I added a meet a year, so it ended up around 2010, 2011, 6 to 7 meets a year.
6 to 7.
Great schedule here. Yeah, it's been going well. What a team! Great team of people, refs, helpers, the whole bit, site sponsors, CrossFits, clubs. Just been fantastic.
So for anybody who doesn't know, Gary is a record holder in Masters weightlifting.
Yeah, you could say that. Two-time world champion in Masters, 2003 and 2013, and 2 times set world record for age group in clean and jerk.
Yeah, man, monster clean and jerk. What was that? Yeah. 165.
Best, my best of my life. I was 42. I did a 165 kilo clean and jerk. Let me see. I won over 10 lots of national records, Masters and whatnot, and Pan Am at least 6 times with associated records, but 2 times won the world, 2003 and 13. With world records each time. It's quite exciting, and I'll tell you, running these local meets, I can really appreciate what the Howard Cohens and Michael Cohens of the world and everybody involved in the sport do to put on something like a world meet. It's incredible. So we're very lucky.
So you're lucky enough to have been able to travel for weightlifting and compete in a lot of different countries and go all over the place. What was your favorite spot to compete in?
Torino. The last time I was in a meet, 2013, my last lift at 56 years old was 146 kilo clean and jerk in Torino, Italy, and that was the last won that world. It was the World Masters Games, so it was a Masters record by 2 kilos, a record by 1 kilo. But the Italy trip, it was the first time the family. I've got a wife and daughter, and she's a junior, going into junior in high school. It was August of 2013, and that was the first time any of us had been to Europe. So we made a whole 2-week thing out of it, starting with the meet. Rome, Florence, Milan, Torino, and then Lake Lucerne, Zurich, Salzburg, London. Incredible. So weightlifting, based on that, or starting with that, takes all over the world. I've been to Australia in the 90s. Let's see. Canadian Rockies. There was a great meet up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada in the 90s. So, I've been fortunate, just steadily learning, working out in the sport, and traveling when I can to compete. Great sport.
How has your workouts changed from when you started in '79 to later years when you had to compete as a Masters?
Learning on my own. I have an undergraduate degree in business, actually, from UConn, that I got in the fall of '79, and then I went back for the Masters '81 to '83, and that was in exercise science. And in between then, in 1980, I had met the great coach Joe Mills, whom you've heard of, or many in America that know him. He trained our last. Well, he was 1942 national champion himself. And he trained Bob Bednarski, Mark Cameron, the last world champions and record holders that we had in this sport in the 60s. So I was very fortunate to experience firsthand, go up to the club and have the old school history shouting at me for 2 or 3 years while he's drinking a Narragansett beer and half the time smoking a Camel cigarette. It's just,
it's a different time.
Oh man, it was. Well, I had the book stuff, as I say, get the masters in exercise and all the certifications, and I taught actually exercise science for 10 years, Sacred Heart in Fairfield.
Are you retired now, or are you still teaching?
It was adjunct professor. I stopped that a couple of years ago, 10 years at Sacred Heart, a year at Southern. So I left that, and I'm just coaching full time, or just, my own business here right at my home. So I do the level 1 and level 2 certs for USA. I run the meets, and just do private training, one-on-one type of things, sessions here to get people individual coaching, which works out extremely well these days.
Yeah, your garage is actually pretty awesome. I've been there only once because it's a far drive from when I was living in Brooklyn, but it was awesome. You had four or five platforms up there. You got a lot of guys come out there and you just throw down. And I think yeah, there's a tour.
Both platforms, all Alico equipment, squat racks. I mean, absolutely, pulling blocks, absolutely everything you need.
Everything you need to be a champion over there, for sure. I think that the one time I came, you were doing the EMOM 20-minute snatches for your athletes, and I think you said that was a Joe Mills workout that you got.
Yeah, it's not. It could be on a minute. It's not necessarily, but it's a basic workout that you just help organize the volume and the intensity of your training as you're lifting, and to coach it is wonderful. But you basically start with 5 singles, snatch and clean and jerk, eventually in the same workout at about 75% of your recent max, roughly. And then you add 5 kilos for lifts 6 through 10 for 5 more singles, and you add 2.5 kilos. Back in the day, we had 2.5 kilo minimum jump, not 1 kilo like that. That was up until 2005. And you do 5 more. So you got 15 lifts that are around 75, 85%. And then you decide if you want to keep climbing by 2.5 kilos toward a max intensity, or you want to take 5 more lifts. It's a flexible workout. It's totally specific. When you get to the meet, you know how much you can lift. I did. That was a lot of my training. I did very well. And it's a simple thing, just to organize the volume and intensity of your training, that you can be flexible and coaching it, on any given day, to take it as heavy or as much as you want, and use it as you see fit day to day. That was one of his hallmark workouts, or what we usually did up there. And it works. You're saying how my training has changed, or what I did once I learned from him. See, the biggest thing where he learned and lifted in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and he was 1942 national champion. There were no steroids or anything back then. They were invented in the 50s and 60s for medical uses, for burn victims or cancer victims that were bedridden. I've never touched any of that stuff in my life. It was never a thought in my father or my family, anything. So I just learned. So when I met him, all he knew was the natural way, because I said there was no question about it, because drugs really didn't exist. They weren't distributed then. So just learning how to lift, and 5 or 6 pearls of wisdom that he gave me virtually on that first day, I ended up learning and applied to myself, to unlearn the bad habits I had when I started doing it myself, and then to go on and continue just when I was in my 40s, really. I was able to work it in on my schedule, look back and digest everything I learned from him and all the research that I knew, and put it together. And it really worked. It was quite a fun journey. It's nothing like, guy putting a medal around your neck, a gold medal, saying, "Congratulations, Mr. Valentine. World record." We're very strong.
And when you're lifting, you're coming up in the 80s and 90s. There's no Instagram, there's no Twitter, there's no social media. So all your lifts, you're training in private in a closet, essentially, because you're pulling those weights out. It's not like there's weightlifting gyms around like there are today.
Yep.
And you're not posting all of your efforts online. No. It's just you and your coach just sort of hanging out. Maybe there's another couple people with you, and it's such a different vibe. So
I try to explain to the guys today, that there were 70s, 80s, there was no computer. Can you imagine? No DVR, no VCR even. No. I saw still pictures in a book from a weightlifting manual from Colorado Springs, Jim's Carl Miller, that they sold in out of the back of an old Iron Man magazine. That's all we had. And I happened to meet a guy that did the lifts in summer of 1979, and I did a 255-pound clean and jerk first time I tried. And he said, "You should stick with that. That's pretty good." I go, "Yeah, this is fun. This is great." And I was 22 years old, you know. But we never saw it done. I mean, I bodybuilded. If you saw that on my site, or I was actually 6th place Mr. Connecticut in 1977, the summer after Pumping Iron came out. So we all got into that down at the Y with the guys. And power lifts, you know, not in a powerlifting meet, but heavy. And that's what you did back then. You went to the Y, you lifted, the older guys were there showing you some stuff. And, you know, you just enjoyed lifting, loved lifting heavy. But as soon as I found this sport, I said, this is it for me. Combines everything. Got to be strong, fast, flexible. Unfortunately, I said a lot of bad habits, or a few anyway, that took some undoing. So it made me a better coach. And then I learned the importance of starting, if possible, with the best technique or motor patterns that you can, because it's those motor patterns that you ingrain and use heavy weight with at the beginning that your body is going to go to when push comes to shove and it's time for a max. It's also fast. It happens in less than a second, you know?
Right.
You've got to have yourself trained. Joe would say, don't think, you're ill-equipped.
Right. I'd say that all the time, too.
Conscious thought, you'll foul it up, you know? So as a coach, then I learned to try to get the lifters to have the respect or to get the best motor patterns possible, or at least the idea in their head, and work toward that, and then worry about overload. And whatever you go forward with as far as motor patterns, that's what you're going to ingrain and make you as a lifter. So I had to break down a lot of patterns. Started with the empty bar when I went to Joe. I cleaned over 300 pounds. He called me down to the club, and his quote when he saw me do it, he goes, "You keep lifting like that, Valentino, you're going to kill yourself." He said, "Come down to the club, I'll teach you how to lift weights." And he said, "Your little 300 doesn't impress me." He goes, Benarski, his best lifter, he goes, clean and jerk 455 pounds on that very platform in the gym in training. He goes, "Your little 300 doesn't impress me. Take the weight off the bar, do it right 5 times with the empty bar, and then you get more weight." So, yes, sir, I said, you know, and just continued, you know, whatever he said. And I met him in 1980, and I trained with him until he passed away in 1990, whenever I could. So it's just an incredible opportunity to bounce off everything I was learning from the books in the early 80s off somebody that's done it for 60 years. So I consider myself very fortunate to have been, you know, that place at that time.
For sure, pioneer. So did he train out of his garage or basement?
Joe had a garage, that was given to him as a ward of the state for $1 a year in Central Falls, Rhode Island. It was almost a 3-hour drive once I got home to Stamford, Connecticut at the time, to get up there. And I would go whenever I could, sometimes only once a month or whenever I can get up there. But it was just an old garage with 2 platforms up on the top, him sitting there with his arm on an old Coke machine refrigerator. You had to bring a 6-pack when you went, put it in the refrigerator thing. And downstairs was like some squat racks and the shower. So it was just, you know, old school, lift it up, put it down. Great. It was great.
It's the simple times.
That's the beginnings of the sport, you know, 1920s. I can tell all the stories now when I do the search and my new lifters. As you probably know, there was 5 lifts back in the 20s in the Olympics. They did the 1-arm snatch. And then whatever arm you used, you had to use the other arm for the 1-arm clean and jerk. She taught me both of those. And then 2 hands clean and press, and snatch and clean and jerk like today. So they did that only for a couple of Olympics. They dropped the 1-arm lifts in the 20s. And then until 72, they had the 2 hands clean and press, which, you know, they omitted that in the 20s. It got to be a push jerk, basically, or lay back the standing bench press.
Right. It's a weird move.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't a strict press. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. And then that's the reason the center knurl is still on the bar for those one-handed traditional movements.
Yep. Turkish get up to do with it now, or bench pressing. He taught me. So yeah, lots of history there. It's very fortunate. It's interesting, and I realize how much our new lifters, you know, don't know of that, or, you know, with all this drug stuff going around. Oh, they changed the weight classes. They're going to omit us from the Olympics in 2024. That all happened in '92. You know, in 1988 was the the All Drug Olympics, as it's called. Ben Johnson got tossed, the Canadian sprinter, 1988.
Right.
So that's when it all erupted, and they threatened to throw lifting and track and field out of the Olympics in 1992. But they rearranged the weight classes at that point. They did it again in '96. It's at least 10 weight class changes since the '90s. But most of our recent lifters only know about this recent round. But been there, done that. And it's cheater's going to cheat.
How rampant do you think the drug use is? Like, even if they go back 8 years and they're testing samples, how deep do you think it is between do you think the entire A session is doped? Like, I mean, I think all of the Olympic sports are pretty much everybody's doping, and it's really hard to catch. Rampant. Yeah, it's impossible.
Quick answer is very rampant. I used to say, or I say, if I can't prove it in a court of law, I really shouldn't say it. But now it's all been proven in a court of law. They've thrown out entire countries because they know the standard system, which we've known forever, that the coaches who used in their day hand it and get it to their athletes that are using it now. You've seen movies like Icarus, I take it, on Netflix,
yeah, sure.
Where even that they held testing, yeah, but if the guy that's doing the testing is bought off and substituting your urine sample for one that he took from you before that was clean. So it's just, cheater's going to cheat, as they say. How much they're still getting away with it and who's doing it, can you really say? Interestingly, 1980 to 83, I won the Connecticut State Championships 4 times doing good lifts, 150 or so, clean and jerk, weighing the old 90 kilo class. But I've done more since as an older. My form was improving, or I was breaking it down, blah, blah, blah. I stopped, I quit for a couple of years, and I just got my master's degree. I started to have a 24-year career in cardiac rehab. I said, I better start doing all this aerobic stuff I learned about so I can prescribe it to my cardiac patients, So the drugs were just ridiculous then. And I had a coach in Connecticut in 1980 before I went to Joe, when I was at UConn, that actually offered me the stuff. I just was in shock. It was right on campus. He was a computer worker there. And I said, I'm not taking that. I mean, I've read the physician's desk reference or read the bottle, read just the side effects, never mind if you get into the rule. Well, we'll all take them. And I knew the guys in the club. And then he goes, no, we're all taking them. You're never going to lift the big weights unless you take drugs. I said, well, goodbye. Turned right around and walked out. And he passed away at 52 of a heart attack. And 56 years old, I'm standing on the world stage. He was a great guy. He thought he was doing the best for the sport, and everybody was doing it then. It's what he did. But as a man or a champion, you got to make your own decisions. And that was certainly not the road for me. And in this sport, it's you and the barbell. So the ultimate challenge is if you beat your PR or your meet total and go up. And what Joe said, after 2 years when I didn't lift, lost a lot of weight. Imagine me weighing about 175 pounds, not lifting for 2 years, just doing aerobic stuff. I mean, I'm a little more than that. Over 2. But I went back to him with my friends. They were going up to see Joe. And I said, I'll go for a social visit. I'll just see Joe. And I threw my shoes in the car, my lifting shoes. And I said, not even 180 pounds. And I go in, he goes, you're not lifting? I go, Joe, all these guys are on the stuff. I says, by the time I'm done in the meet, these guys are just starting, and I know they're on the stuff. It's just cheating. He goes, well, do you like lifting? I go, I love lifting. Are you kidding me? This is great. He goes, well, let them kill themselves. That's got nothing to do with you finding out how much you can lift. And that was the moment. It was 1986. And I put the shoes on, and I started again there because it was all about you and the bar. What anybody else chooses to do, you have no control over it anyway. So you go put all your energy into putting up your best total, improving yourself the best you can. And then what happens. The rest is up to, it's spiritual about it, the good Lord, or who's it's that. So it was 1942. I ended up with a 123 snatch, weighing 105, not even, 165 clean and jerk. And I'm running these meets now, and it's all very rarely, I can honestly say, if you can count, it ain't bragging if it's the truth. Very few of the lifters, I know who's jerking over 160, 165 that a few people, but all natural and 40-something years old. Not for anything, but my point is, Don't worry about these guys. Don't fiddle with that crazy stuff that risks your health, and just get better and better. And with you in the bar, well, that's all you need. You don't have to worry about if it's boxing or wrestling, you got to worry about how good the other guy is, because he may take your head off and you can hurt yourself. But if you put all your energy into seeing how much you can lift and how much you can develop yourself, that to me is the essence of this sport and what it offers to us. So, that's me.
For sure. It's a lot. Most of the athletes that we're coaching, I don't know how far you've taken athletes as far as international competitions, but majority of them that you deal with are not going to the Olympics. We're all here to try for self-improvement. There are those 1 and 2 that are just head and shoulders above the rest, and they will outshine anybody on any day, but those are rare. They're not everybody. A lot of the people I have here, they're the everyday person. They just like the sport. They like lifting, and we're just trying to hit PRs for ourselves. We're trying to compete for ourselves. So
there you go.
When all this information comes out about what's going on with the IWF and how much corruption is in that sport, I don't think there's any more corruption in this sport that there isn't in any other sport at that level.
True.
It is
likely it's true.
Yeah, you're at an elite level. There's going to be a lot of politics that play a role. There's going to be a lot of money being passed around, and fortunately and unfortunately, I don't get to play in that game, so I don't really care. Do what you want to do.
Exactly. We can only do our best, and this sport really lends itself to that. It's you in the bar and gravity, and just you owe it to yourself to find out how good you can get.
Yeah.
How you compare it or who's cheating or what. Don't play that. Like I said, as a cardiac rehab director for 24 years, anybody can Google now the studies on what these drugs do to your cardiac risk profile. Even in legal doses, which guys are taking tens and 100 times or whatever and combining and stacking all different drugs. You could take one for 8-week and a 12-week trial with one great study that was done. And in legal doses, normal doses, it was proven that your HDL cholesterol, which is as predictive for heart attack as the most strongest predictor, gets knocked down significantly while you're on the stuff. Will come back after a while, but the ones in the 12-week group gets knocked down more and takes longer to come back. You can only imagine what happens with people that are on it for years, the drugs. And this is why we're seeing guys at 40s and 50s with heart attacks. Obviously, there's many factors that go into it, but blood lipid profiles are very strong predictors, and they're just playing with this stuff that over time. Now, I'd say that's the last thing that's probably going to, scare or inform a teenager that they shouldn't do this stuff. Your HDL is going to go down, and your triglycerides are going up, and your total cholesterol is going up. But you got to live in that body a long time. And when you willingly take this stuff and do this to your body, then they pay the price. It's all a risk over time. It just never made any sense to me. It never did. You want to get stronger and healthier doing this sport. So to put something in your body that could only be a risk, and it's against the stated rules, just makes absolutely no sense. But we continue to cheat or do it. I don't know. Everybody, we all make our own decisions.
I think everybody's going to cheat in some capacity. Even in your workouts, you're going to cheat reps because you're tired, whatever happens. It happens. There's cheating going on all around us. It's just how much of it is or what the consequences are to that specific one.
Right, but as coaches, we got to have our athletes take a stand, or they got to see you take a stand.
Right.
To say it's all individual decisions, and they all add up. So you can either join in and just go with the crowd, or you can do it. We pay to do this as lifters.
Right, we're not getting paid.
What does it make?
This is for fun.
Exactly, and development. And as I say, strength and health. I realized pretty recently how. That was the magazine I grew up on in the 60s. You've seen it, I assume. Strength and Health, Bob Hoffman out of York, Pennsylvania.
Sure. I
have those magazines going back to 1937, okay, all of them, back up in my upstairs conference room. So I realized it's always been about strength and health when I do this sport, to get stronger and healthier. And putting something that's a known risk to your health. It's on the bottle. It's in the physician's desk records. Never made any sense to me. And I've had 0 injuries in this sport. I've never gotten hurt. And part of that is luck. There's risk to this no matter how you do it. But when they take the drug, besides the stated health effects, liver, all this stuff, heart, the muscles it's unnatural. The muscles get faster, stronger than the connective tissue and bones and things like that. And this is where the injuries come from, to the joints, spine, things like that. That they're accelerating the rate unnaturally of the muscles, and the rest of the body doesn't catch up. So what you got is a bunch of people that don't understand how the body changes with training, and then blindly accelerating it with things that get off the internet that some guy told them to take. And it's to me, it's insane. But as I said, this sport offers you a chance to make your own decisions and put it out there. You got to live with it. So, yeah, I've never had an injury in this sport.
I'm right there with you. I've never really taken. I mean, we all have bumps and bruises, but I've never really been injured. Okay. Knock on wood. You know, a lot of it is I attribute it because I think weightlifting, you're lifting heavy all the time, and a lot of people that overdo it will get those nagging IT band issues, knee pain, and they don't really complement it with supplemental accessories or like some sort of aerobic exercise. So I like to supplement all of my workouts with at least 1 or 2 CrossFit workouts, but not heavy CrossFit, like light CrossFit that I can manage and do what I need to do. Because I got to get blood flow into my joints and into everything so that it heals up.
Recovery, yep.
Yeah, If I think a lot of athletes fall short in that category. They're like, oh, I'm weightlifting. I'm never going to do any of those crazy workouts that you guys do. But it's not really crazy when it's just a light movement and you just have to get blood flow. And you gotta breathe heavy a little bit every once in a while.
Exactly. You've got to be conscious of your fitness level always. And CrossFit has helped us a lot with that or kept us aware. But a few of Joe's pearls of wisdom, and again, I always go back to how he summed it up, his 60 plus years of training and how that was backed up by all the exercise science that I learned. And one of his sayings, when an athlete got hurt, he goes, well, what happened? Did the bar jump off the ground and hurt you? Or did you do something wrong? Okay, and that's how you got to look at it. Everything you always said, I'm like, well, yeah, I chose a bar path. I chose how often to lift. I chose how many reps with what weights. And as accidents could happen, but largely, our injuries, if you stop back and look at the outcomes and observe, it's either faulty motor patterns, and I'll just muscle it up. I don't need technique. Yeah, okay. And then the other is working out too often. Now, another of his sayings was working out a hard hour or two Olympic workout, usually starting with 1 or both of the lifts, then some squats or pulls or heavy. It might be 2 hours total. If we're talking about that kind of workout for a natural lifter, he would say 3 times a week is ideal. 2 times a week would be better than 4. And 1 time a week would be better than 5. And I looked at him as everybody did, like, no, that's backwards, Joe. All the, Bulgarians, 3 times a day, 6 days a week. All drug inflated. Again, he was no drugs back there. They had to learn the natural way. So think about it. If you hit a hard, full body workout with max CNS involvement, high force squats and whatnot, and you think you can do that night again or the next day? And then he would add to that, it's only every 7 to 10 days that you'll really fully recover and you go in, the weights are flying off the ground. So my reply to that was, and I tell this to all my athletes, I said, so 3 days, so you're telling me, come in here, hit it hard, you taught me good technique, I'm not going to kill myself now, and I can hit it as hard as I want. I love this feeling of throwing heavy weights around. And then I'm supposed to eat and sleep as much as I can for like a day or 2 until I do it again? And he goes, that's what I'm telling you. I said, that's what I'm doing. And since 1980, since he told me that, I've not worked out 2 days in a row. And a lot of times I've taken 4 days when I was in my training heaviest, a Sunday, and I would just learn to listen to my body and say, if I'm not itching to get back in there, I don't go back in there because my CNS is not fully recouped. My muscles are still a little sore. Why would I go disrupt it again? If I do, it proves I don't understand the process of getting stronger, which is lift, rest, eat, until you super compensate and get stronger, and then you tear it down again. And when I was doing that in my 40s especially, I had set up a really good schedule here with work, I was getting some kind of personal best almost every workout, whether it's another rep with a given weight or an actual max, but certainly every week. And you're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. This is supposed to make you stronger. Not walk around exhausted and hurt and say, oh, that workout kicked my ass. Aren't I a badass? No. It's stupid. I'm sorry. You have to use a strong word sometimes if you want people to listen, because it's like, why are you letting these weights jump off the ground and hurt you? When if you did it right, you would feel better all the time and you would get the best result.
Now, do you think...
Again, I'm very lucky.
Do you think that there's a balance between a 2-hour heavy workout and maybe spreading it out throughout the week? Because like for me, I'm here 6 days a week, so my workout spreads out throughout the week, and I'll do whatever. I'm tired all the time, so it's fine. But I'll hit it for 20 minutes. I'll hit what I hit. I move on. And then maybe an hour, 3 hours later, I come back, hit something else. And a lot of the times I have a better workout as I go on through the day. Or sometimes I'm too stressed out and my body's broken and it's the empty bar is all I got.
That's why I preempted that. Exactly. That's why I preempted that. We're doing this hour or two with everything at heart. And face it, you have to approach the intensity of a meet most of the time if you're going to improve. A lot of light weights is part of the program, but it's not going to get you to the big one. But the whole point that he meant with that was whatever you take out and use up when you lift, whether it's just the first segment where you just hit your 20 snatches or your 5 sets of 3 snatches, something like that, and then you have to leave. Fine. Then you can come back the next day, very likely, because that's enough time to recover from that. So that's the real point. And that's why I said I preempted it with if it's a full 2-hour workout with a natural lifter, it's very unlikely that you're going to do it 2 days in a row, and never mind even the third. Now, the problem is, since the 60s and 70s, all these programs that you see now on the net, which helps spread this baloney faster and faster, is all drug inflated. We're in this cloud of all this stuff we've seen from the Russians in the 70s, Bulgarians in the 80s, Greeks, Iranians, 2000s, the Chinese. All these programs they put up are all drug inflated. We know that. They know that. And when you try to follow that as an Olympic lifter or a natural lifter, it proves that you don't have an understanding or a plan of your own. Just imitating something randomly you see on the internet, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. A guy that's in his 10th year and you're in your 50th, and you're gonna copy it. I mean, really, where's your plan? And then they don't look at the outcomes. They get hurt and just figure, well, I was badass. I tried that program and I got hurt. Well, why?
I try to push people to, like, a lot of my programming is, one, my attitude as a coach to an athlete is I want to get you out of your head as much as possible because there's no time to think when you're weightlifting. 2, we're gonna max out every day, but to an extent, which is daily maxes. So like if we're hitting a heavy triple, I don't necessarily need you to hit a PR, but we're gonna hit the best you can hit for that day, and we'll back off.
Exactly. Do your best each workout for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. You have to.
Some days, these guys, they're gonna be hitting some lighter lifts, and it's like, all right, listen, you're beat to shit. Take it off today and just move around with the empty bar or just move around with a lightweight.
Skill reinforcement. Grease the groove, as we say. Definitely.
Yeah, and as you move on, everything should progress. But it's not a linear progression. It's not always going to go up. And a lot of people just think, I had a terrible workout this week. I'm never going to have a good workout again, and they get in their head. Right. And it's like, dude, chill out. It's just weightlifting.
That comes from the lack of understanding of what you're doing to the body when you train, and not having like a long-term plan or an understanding of the time frame that it should take. Now, another one you probably hear, another one of Joe's words of wisdom that day was, when a lifter starts fresh, 5 years to learn how to lift, another 5 or 10 to see how much you're going to lift. And kids, you hear that like, wow, 5 years, I'm not going to, Well, think about it. I played baseball all my life, all right? Little League and Babe Ruth, age 10 to 15. You're learning the fundamentals, the skills, and then you go on if you're going to get high school star or you're going to be drafted. Football, same team. What do they call it? Pop Warner or youth football. Pretty much 4 or 5 years, you're learning the fundamentals, then you grow. And if you understand the anatomy, physiology of the body, all these systems that you're trying to change, from the endocrine system to the bones, to the ligaments, meniscus, things like that are avascular, very low blood supply, they take a long time to change. And to train the nervous system to do that one motor pattern, the snatch and the clean jerk, every time without thinking explosively, this takes years. It's at least a couple of years for everyone to reach what would be like an automatic type thing. But it's 5 years. If someone's discouraged by that, guess what? Maybe you need a different sport or something, because you cannot fool Mother Nature. And look at what's happening to the guys that are trying to fool Mother Nature. You only see the top drug addicts on YouTube that are left standing. But you can take the quote from who was this god that they worshipped in the 80s, for God's sakes, Abadjiev. Right. Ivan Abadjiev, the Bulgarian, admittedly pumped the lifters full of drugs, and the ones left standing were the ones that you saw and you imitated. Not here, but he was on a podcast, and when he was asked, this is a direct quote, when he was asked, what do you do when one of your lifters hits a plateau? What do you think he said? Everybody waited, and it was like, is he going to say, I give him more drugs? Is he going to have a magic exercise? Is he going to say, I actually rested him? You know what he said?
What did he say?
I get a new lifter.
Yeah.
So basically, again, these guys watch these videos and try to imitate these so-called champs, and all you're seeing is the guys that have withstood it up to that point. You don't see the ones that have fallen by the wayside or he's gotten a new lifter, okay? And they imitate. This is the biggest drawback with, internet type of thing. It's a wonderful tool. I never saw a lift done until I was 22 years old, 23 years old. Still pictures in a book. That's all we have.
Right.
All right. Now it's too much the other way. They're seeing all these lifters that are admittedly drugged up, okay, and then trying to imitate them. And this guy's they're in their 10th year and they haven't gotten badly hurt yet. And you take somebody in their 10th week and they're trying to imitate what this guy is doing. It's like giving a 10th grade textbook to a first grader. It doesn't work.
Right.
But yet they all think they're doing great coaching. Our coaches, some of our coaches do it. Well, that's what the world champ does. That's what we should do. No. Maybe what he was doing in his first year, maybe. But learning the principles of coaching and of lifting, applying it to each lifter individually, whenever, however, and how that changes over time. That's coaching, not just imitating what some, known drug addict is doing. Your favorite lifter, which one do they imitate? The one with the blonde hair and the makeup, the girls, or the,
Right.
How do you choose which one you're going to imitate, even if you're going to imitate? Sorry, it just never made any sense to me.
What do you think can be done to combat the drug use, if anything? Like, if you could change something, what would you want to change about it?
The fact that most everyone in the sport to this day worships, imitates, praises all these known drug addicts. Can't state it, and it's true. I see it on Facebook all the time. Guy, the poster boy for it, a guy that had with the 105 class, and he got suspended for drug use, had his Olympic medals taken away, okay? He's on the suspended list, out of competition, puts a video on youth Facebook of him doing 240 or something, power jerk, push jerk, and they all send it around. This is unbelievable. These are coaches, anybody involved in the sport. I know he's on drugs, but this is unbelievable. Look at this weight that he's doing. He's incredible. Well, what do you think a 13-year-old lifter comes into the gym and sees his coach talking like that and ogling and praising and worshiping this guy? But then he turns around and says, oh, clean sport. Don't take those drugs. But look at this guy that's on the drugs. Incredible, isn't it? Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, is it me? Tell me the truth, because I see this all the time, and it drives me nuts. The only negative of the sport that I see, and they still do it. It's hypocritical. And what is that? That 13-year-old kid should see his a healthy downplay of this guy. Yeah, look, he's on drugs. He's so addicted. These drugs are mentally and physically addicted. He's on the suspended list. Clearly, he's taking more, and he's putting it out. We should shun that. But I can't tell you, a dozen times plus, that same video a couple of years ago got sent around, and everybody that sent it and the list of praises got it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's why, right? That's why it continues.
Yeah.
Think about it.
You're right. There's money behind it. It's money, because these guys, they need to make it. And
so they're sellouts. They're hypocrites and they're sellouts. That's what we're saying. And this is the people we worship. Not me.
Unfortunately, those are the top athletes, and until they get brought to justice, as many of them have.
Well, that's what's wrong with the sport. You ask what's wrong with the sport to me, and and I mentioned
and
that.
it's not just weightlifting, though. It's every sport.
No.
Yeah, it's every
that
sport.
Doesn't excuse it. Of course not. Baseball.
No.
A-Rod convicted, all of that, and now they're still heroes. Actors. Sylvester Stallone carrying a suitcase full of growth hormone into Australia years ago, got caught, and that's okay. We'll still buy his movies or speak of him like, oh, look how ripped he is. And the thing was, without it, you could take that guy, went back in competition and couldn't clean and jerk what he snatched when he was on the stuff.
Right.
So there's outright proof out there, the difference that this crap makes. And yet they praise known drug users, worship it. The coach, when that coach died, he was praised as a god, the Bulgarian coach, knowingly giving stuff to the lifters, okay? And he was praised by all our coaches and people, or anybody involved in the sport, lifters, whatever, as a god. So they worship known drug users. And at the same time, we have clean sport where you're supposed to report these people and you pledge to provide a clean field. So I'm sorry, I get a little heated about it because I see, look at the list. Look at the damn list on USA Weightlifting.
Yep, it's a long list.
It's growing all the time. It's growing all the time. And why? Well, they let them give talks at our clubs and boxes. What sense does it make for a known drug-using athlete to come into one of our U.S. clubs? He's been suspended. You know he's on stuff. And giving talks to our athletes. What do you think the message is, whether it's said, which probably is?
Right.
Well, he takes drugs, but, and eventually, I know lifters that have gone to seminars like that, and they end up on that list. I'm not mentioning any names right now, but I can tell you lifters that were not on the stuff went to these seminars, saw how these guys were glorified, got the message that that's what the tough guys do, and then get on the stuff and get suspended.
One of my things is that with USA Weightlifting, they don't really offer USA Weightlifting athletes to go around and do seminars. You have to sort of approach them on their own. I feel like that would be a very lucrative opportunity to go to different gyms and do seminars, Snatch clinic, clean and jerk clinic, with the USA Weightlifting athletes and the top USA weightlifters, even their coaches.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. We have about 100 instructors in the country that do level 1, and about half of them or 25 of them do level 2. And that's all getting revamped. The advanced course, online format, online test, and it'll be launched in April. So all the information is out there. The problem, though they're well-intentioned, okay, you take a lifter that's lifting a lot of weight and goes and does a seminar, and he's not necessarily a coach, so he doesn't know how to teach. Now, it's not mutually exclusive, but what happens most of the time is lifter goes in and say he's on year 7 and he's focusing on a certain thing that he needs or she needs to improve their lifting at that point, okay? So then they go out and they give that to all the beginners, okay?
Right.
They're gonna say, oh, take my seminar because I teach you to do this, and it's not right. My business here is people coming in for a couple of 2-hour sessions one-on-one and get them on the right track and see what they need to do. Corrective exercise is what? And what I see constantly is this, well, this guy came to our box and he snatched 300 pounds and he told us to do this. And, it's something that they have to unlearn. And then they ask me, why did they tell us that? I said, I can't answer that. All I can tell you is you're not supposed to bang your hips so hard into the bar in the 9/10 of seconds that you have to leave it, that you chip your hip bones and get black and blue, and I have to wear these diapers with pads in them and jump off the front of my platform, for Christ's sakes. I had somebody jump forward 18 inches on a lift. Because in the lift, all they're thinking is, I got to bang my hips into the bar so hard. That's like the golden thing to do 5 years ago, okay? And they're like, you're jumping forward, you're losing the bar behind you. No, vertical bar path is horrible. And the other part of that is they'll tell them to push their knees back at the start of the lift. Now, this is where the videos are harmful. Do the knees go back in the lift off of the first pull? Of course. But why? Because you're keeping your center of mass above the barbell, and when you push down, your legs straight. So if you look at that and just say, oh, do what he does, just push his knees go back. Well, yeah, but if you just push your knees back, you're going to rip your hamstrings,
right?
Strain your lower back. And I had another guy that jumped back 15 inches. And I said, he goes, well, that's kind of why I'm here. He set up a camera on the side of the bar. I said, I don't have those plastic plates. You can't really see your bar pad that's good or your arm. I said, I do 45 degrees. And he smiled. He goes, no, you'll see what I'm doing or what I'm talking about. He's jumping back with every lift, rounding his back. I said, why do you do that? I said, what's the cause? He's supposed to push down. Newton's third law. Hello. Push down to make the bar go up. And he says, well, every time I approach the bar, he had this coach for 2 or 3 years at the beginning when the patterns are being formed. Every time I walk up the bar, I can hear the coach saying, push your knees back, push your knees back. And this is another thing. I worked in a hospital, medical terminology and whatnot. We look at outcomes. You can try whatever you want. If you think you're supposed to just push your knees back to start the lift, go ahead. If you really think that's what a great coach it is. But what's the outcome? This guy jumping back 15 inches, catching his cleans like this, winging his snatches, who the hell knows where. Is that the outcome you want? But no, you tell him to do it more or bang his hips harder. this is, as I say, I'm doing this full time since 2009 and before that. And I know what people come in the door with and what I have to correct. And I see the frustration of that, the initial motor patterns that are learned are very hard to change. It's changeable, but it's very hard to change. And so I can't tell you how many have asked me, why did they tell me that? Or why didn't they? I said, I can't answer to that. All I can say is watch your video of you lifting. Here's what you're doing. Look at your feet. A lifter should never jump forward. That's a never. Either they didn't complete the pull or they swung it forward or banged it forward. It's a terrible bar path. It's way less than optimal. But they were all doing it for a while and sold on it. Holy Christ. You tried to tell somebody not to bang the bar forward with their hips. The final nail in the coffin, Piros Demas, our technical director, on one of our webinars, was asked, on an international level, what is the mistake we see that Americans are known for technique? And without a hesitation, he goes, that they're told to bang their hips into the bar. Okay? So it's like, of course you don't do that. In exercise science, it's horizontal displacement. I got to tell you to lift something up, not to bang it that way. I mean, but it gets out there, and because of internet and selling jobs and whatnot, people believe it. And it's unfortunate because I see the frustration that happens. And yeah, do the hips come toward the bar? Well, of course. You start out with your hips behind you because you're bent over. But they come forward because you're standing up and pushing down and keeping the bar close to you. Most don't know that a clean is called a clean because before the mid-'60s, the bar was not supposed to touch your body at all. Are you familiar with that rule ever? You know anybody that run into that? That's what a clean was or what it was called. So little lifters had to bend their arms and there were splitters a lot before that, and let the bar go forward so that it wouldn't touch their body and break the rules. So now that they changed that rule in the 60s, the 5 brush, the bar could touch the body, keep your arms straight, use your traps and quads. You had to brush the body, you got ideal leverage, and the lifts went up, 20, 50 kilos each, 70, 80.
Do you ever just run a clinic at a CrossFit gym, or not about level ones? Like, that's what I was getting at, is where the coaches from USA Weightlifting who run the level ones or level twos, why doesn't USAW offer that for those coaches to do snatch clinics, clean clinics, jerk clinics, maybe not even like a long day, just a few hours?
I do it.
You do it on your own.
It's on my webpage.
Right.
Any box owner or anyone that has a club can say, I would like to run a level 1. And we go there and do it. And they get part of the money for the use of their place. Yeah, so
we do that. We have
today and say,
a couple
I want to run I'd like to have a level 1 at my box up in Enfield.
Right.
Fine. Well, let's pick a date. It has to be 8 weeks in advance, and everybody's happy. Or I do the private stuff. I can do a private 2-hour, 4-hour, 8-hour seminar at your place. You can come here with a group of 3 with one person for my 2-hour starts. The information is there.
Oh, yeah,
but
for sure.
In this information age, ironically, everybody believes everything what they see. If it's said maybe convincingly, or they just, that guy's snatched 300, so I'm going to do what he does. That's the buyer beware, right? Caveat emptor, whatever you want to call it, business. They're free to do it, but they never look at the outcome. Well, that's what he said to do. Bend your arms like you're tearing the head off a tiger or something. I'm like, well,
it's anything to get the lifter to do something a little bit more aggressively. So I guess you can't take every cue as
right. I get it because I know what he's talking about and where he is in his lifting. But when you get a beginner do it, all fouled up, and that's it. It just goes. I don't mean everyone's well intentioned. Please don't get me wrong. There's opportunities for guys to make money and whatnot. I'm telling you that I see the frustration that beginners and the injuries that beginners get from unqualified teachers to go out or coaches to go out and preach anything and make some money. And that's up to the person hiring them. I'm really not here thinking of knocking them. I'm just saying I see what it can produce, and it's much less than ideal. I mean, I had a lifter do a good lift and say, it doesn't hurt my back that way. I'm like, well, it's not supposed to hurt your back, So it's kind of odd what you see out there, but interesting nonetheless.
The moral of the story, guys, is stay in the middle and keep that bar close and make sure you elevate.
There you have it. Push down to make the bar go up. Keep the bar close to your body.
I like to take people out of their heads because they're getting lost and frustrated with the bar path. And I'll say, hey, where's the bar go? And they'll point overhead. How do you get it there? With my legs. All right, cool. Do that.
Do that. Yeah, that's a great coaching cue. That's what we end up with saying here. Do that. Yeah, keep it simple. You have to, because it takes less than a second to get the bar to the highest point, So any thinking is going to foul it up. That's interesting. It's part of any teaching, how a person, the information they get. But I just, having been in the sport this long, again, I'm 63 years old. I started in the 70s where we had virtually nothing, not even a VCR. You couldn't take a video of your lift, okay? Unless you had a Super 8 camera or, took it to get developed. So now it's too much the other way. To have a sample of lift, different lifters doing lifts to see how different heights and anatomies come up with maybe a different looking lift, fine. But to outright copy a random one, that's probably the biggest fault for what we see as the problem. And once it gets ingrained at the beginning, it's doable, but it's hard to unwind. And I really hate seeing those frustrations, because it's needless. It's needless. You stop and think.
I agree, man. All right, we're gonna wrap this one up. Coach Gary Valentine, tell everybody where they can find you and any other thing you want to let us in on.
In Wilton, Connecticut, ConnecticutWeightlifting.com. I do one-on-one or small group 2-hour sessions here. Level 1s, level 2s, competitions. Hopefully coming back Sunday. We'll get through all this COVID stuff and be back to our meets of over 100 people at a time. But we'll just hang in there, do our best.
All right, guys. If you're in the Connecticut area, make sure you look up Coach Gary Valentine. He's an awesome coach, and as you just heard, he's got a lot of knowledge. Age is inevitable. Weakness is not. So get out there and lift some shit, guys. We'll see you next time.
I like that. Thanks, Joe. Take care, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for watching today's MarbleCast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any content. Check out our Spreadshirt shop to grab some swag. And if you would like to support the MarbleCast, please head over to anchor.fm. All of the links are in the description, and it helps us out to keep the channel running. Thanks so much, guys. See you next time.